We can run into trouble when we, as high achievers, are starting something new or when we find ourselves in an unfamiliar environment and we expect ourselves to act like an expert. This is a setup for feeling like a failure. And what are we trying to do? We're trying to stop feeling like a failure. You're listening to the Life Edit Project podcast, where busy, ambitious high achievers get the tools they need to fight perfectionism and overwhelm so they can smash their goals without all the drama. I'm your host, recovering overachiever turned professional life coach, Elizabeth Burrows. Let's get to it. Good day, good people. Welcome back. This is episode 42 of the Life Edit Project podcast, and I'm your host, Coach Elizabeth. As always, super glad to have you with me. So before we get started, I just have to say that I'm feeling a little fancy today. Y'all should know that sometimes I record these episodes in an official recording studio, and sometimes I'm recording them from my home studio, which happens to be my closet, in case y'all didn't know. So today I'm recording at home, but I got a new podcast mic, and it's making me feel real professional. This is giving professional vibes over here, and I just thought y'all should know. But that's not at all what today's conversation is about. Today, I want to help you stop feeling like a failure. I warned y'all last week that season 2 of this show was going to explore more concepts having to do with mindset instead of just the super practical, strategies and tips like what I did last year. Like what I did last season. So today's conversation is heavy on the mindset. And I think that this is going to be really helpful to you. And here's why I think so. Because this podcast is geared towards people who see themselves as high achievers. You know, you are ambitious, you have lots of goals for yourself, there are things that you have to do. And here's what I know about high achievers. Not only do you high achievers tend to rack up lots of really impressive achievements, because y'all do achieve, right? We achieve. I count myself among the high achiever club. But I've also learned that high achievers tend to achieve so much because we hold ourselves to such high standards of accomplishment. And it's not just that we hold ourselves to high standards. These standards often come with judgment from ourselves towards ourselves. So we tend to judge ourselves by how much we can do and how well we can do it, how fast we can get there, and also kind of how special and unique our accomplishments are. And while all of those achievements can feel really good, the flip side to kind of being a high achiever and to having this type of ambition is that when we don't reach our goals and when we don't land where we think we should be, when we're not the best and when we're not the fastest or when we're not accomplishing the most notable achievement, we tend to consider the outcome to be a failure. And this is problematic because when you identify as a high achiever, any experience that doesn't look like achieving at a very high level literally feels like a threat to your personal existence. Now, if you didn't listen to last week's episode, I'm going to tell you to go back and listen to that one when you're done listening to this episode, because last week I talked a lot about self-concept and identity. And so when I say when you identify as a high achiever, I want you to understand what I mean when I talk about self-concept and identity. So coming back around to this episode. So when you identify as a high achiever and not achieving at a high level feels like a threat to your personal existence, this becomes a reason to avoid and run away from situations and experiences where you think you're unlikely to excel, where you think you're unlikely not just to get the thing done, but that you're unlikely to do it well and to do it, in a high level. Because if you're not excelling, then you don't know who you are. And sometimes, if we're not careful, not only do we experience failure, but we can over-identify with the experience of failure and begin to see ourselves as a failure, even though we are high achievers. And that dichotomy, feeling like a failure while also believing yourself to be a high achiever, is a really confusing place to be. It can be the source of a lot of angst, right? Been there, done that. I can probably write a book about it. So, in this episode, I want to give you a tool that you can use to get out of this pattern of feeling like a failure. And that tool is something that I am calling the beginner's mindset. So grab your pen and grab your paper because you will definitely want to take some notes on this episode. You ready? Let's go. So before I dive into the concept of the beginner's mindset, I want to talk about something else first. Us high achievers, we tend to approach most things in life with what I'm going to call the expert's mindset, which is kind of the exact opposite of the beginner's mindset. So the expert's mindset would be all of the things that you think and feel and believe about yourself and about the thing that you're trying to do and the results that you imagine getting when your perception is that you are a person who excels. Now, in contrast to that, the beginner's mindset would be all of the things that you would think and feel and believe about yourself and about the thing you're trying to do and about the results that you imagine getting and the results that you actually do get when you perceive yourself to be a beginner who is capable of improving. Now, I don't want you to get hung up on deciding which of these mindsets is better or which of these mindsets is more right for you. Because here's the deal. Neither of these mindsets is about what's true or what's right. That's not what mindset is ever about. Instead, mindset is about choosing to direct your thoughts and your focus on the kinds of beliefs and the kinds of thoughts that help you get what you want out of life. Mindset is not a reality. Mindset is a tool that allows you to create the reality that you want. That was good. Okay, so that being said, the expert mindset isn't better or worse than the beginner's mindset. But there is a time and a place where one of these mindsets might be more useful to you than the other, depending on what it is that you're trying to do. And we can run into trouble when we, as high achievers, are starting something new or when we find ourselves in an unfamiliar environment and we expect ourselves to act like an expert. This is a setup for feeling like a failure. And what are we trying to do? We're trying to stop feeling like a failure. And now I do want to acknowledge the fact that a lot of high achievers are naturally gifted in many areas. And it's often not our fault that we feel like we should be an expert. And it's because our natural gifts and abilities lull us into this false sense of security and this way of believing that it should be easy to excel and thrive, because in the areas where we naturally excel and thrive, it comes easy to us. And so we tend to think that everything should be easy. If we're excelling easily over here, we should be excelling easily over there too. But the problem is that raw talent isn't the only thing that's required for success. In fact, sometimes raw talent isn't required at all for the success that you're trying to achieve. And we see this out there in the world, out there in the wild, when we notice someone who seems to have mediocre talent or a mediocre skill set, but they're experiencing more success than someone that we believe is more talented, right? So why does this happen? One reason is that sometimes the less talented hard worker is just more willing to be a beginner than the naturally talented high achiever. But here's what I want you to consider. No matter what it is that you do, and no matter how much of a high achiever you are, if you want to feel less like a failure, all you have to do is get better at being a beginner. And not just the kind of beginner that just sucks. I'm not telling you that you should just be happy with sucking at the things that you do. No, no. Getting better at being a beginner is to cultivate a beginner's mindset, right? Where you believe and you perceive yourself to be the kind of person who's capable of improving. So good. So for the rest of this episode, I am going to share with you some of the core beliefs that make up a beginner's mindset so that you can cultivate these beliefs within yourself and use the beginner's mindset to reach more success. That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to talk about. But before we do that, I do want to say that this concept of the beginner's mindset, as I'm about to explain it, is a concept that I developed, but it is inspired by a concept that I am borrowing from Buddhism. And no, I am not at all a Buddhist. In fact, I don't know a whole lot about Buddhism, y'all. But Buddhists do have a concept that they call beginner's mind. And the Buddhist concept is essentially that beginners can approach a situation, a new situation, with an openness for more possibilities than an expert who's used to doing something in a particular way. I'm probably explaining that in a very clunky and very inaccurate way, but that's essentially the nutshell. So I am expanding on that, and I am saying the beginner's mindset is a set of thoughts and beliefs that you can cultivate for yourself that allow you to approach the process of learning something and the state of being a beginner in a way that allows you to achieve more success. There are 5 core beliefs that I think are critical to a beginner's mindset. And I'm going to go through them very quickly, and then I'm going to give you some examples of how these beliefs might come into play in different scenarios. So the first core belief or core element of the beginner's mindset is that of sufficiency. Sufficiency. So sufficiency really means believing that the information, the skills, the talent, and the resources that you have or have access to right now are good enough for you to get worthwhile results. And that's in contrast to believing instead that what you need is to reach some type of qualification before you can get started. So sufficiency is about believing that who you are and where you are right now is enough to get you started and is on the way to where you're trying to be. Okay, so that's sufficiency. The second core belief of a beginner's mindset is openness. And by openness, I mean cultivating the belief that there's more than one definition of success, and also that there can be more than one pathway to success, right? So not only is there more than one way to achieve, but there's also more than one way to get to any of the achievements that exist. It's about holding space for the things that you don't know are possible and holding space for the possibility that there are also things that you don't know that you don't know. And that is in contrast to believing that success looks like one thing, like there is one end goal, one end destination that is success and everything else is failure. The third core belief of a beginner's mindset is that of celebration. Celebration. No hidden code here. Celebration is about acknowledging and honoring all the signs of progress that you're going to see on your way to where you're trying to go. And of course, that is going to be in contrast to restricting yourself to only celebrating the final stage of success or achieving at only the highest level of expertise. The fourth core belief of a beginner's mindset is curiosity. Curiosity is all about maintaining a sense of wonder and fascination throughout the journey. However long the journey is, wherever the journey takes you, it's about maintaining that sense of wonder instead of feeling ashamed for not getting expert results right now. The fifth and final core belief of a beginner's mindset is that of detachment. And by detachment, I mean not needing the outcome to be anything in particular. That whatever result you get is fine, and it doesn't have to stop you from continuing to learn and grow and improve and chase success. And this is going to be in contrast to something you might believe or feel if you're operating from an expert's mindset, where you need the outcome to be good enough before you let yourself feel proud of what you've accomplished, or before you get to call yourself successful, or before you get to say that the results that you've gotten count. Okay, so let me give you some examples so you can kind of see what these core beliefs look like in operation. So the first example I'm going to give you is the example of, let's say, building an exercise habit. So let's say you're trying to focus on your fitness, you're doing well in your career, you feel like you got your family stuff on point, you got some friends and all that, got a little bit of money in the bank, but what has really kind of taken a back seat in your life in the last few years is your health, and you got to get your body moving. So if you're going to operate from a beginner's mindset as you work to build an exercise habit, you're going to start with sufficiency. Sufficiency might look like whatever your fitness level is right now, there is something that you can do to get started, right? So instead of saying, oh, I have to, get in shape before I can go to the gym and work out in front of other people, you're going to say, the way I am right now is fine, and I can work out either at the gym or I can work out at home if that's where I'm most comfortable. There is something that I can do right now. Openness might look like staying open to more than one definition of success. So instead of simply deciding if your exercise regimen is successful based on the numbers on the scale, perhaps you'll decide that you're successful when you can walk up a flight of stairs without feeling super winded, or when you notice that those pants that were a little too snug fit you, a little more loosely. Celebration might look like celebrating all the signs of progress. For example, let's say you go to the doctor for your annual physical and the doctor says, hey, your bad cholesterol is low and your good cholesterol is up compared to last year. You must be doing something good. You're going to celebrate that even if you haven't reached your goal weight, or even if you don't yet have the six-pack abs that you're working toward, right? Curiosity would look like maintaining a sense of wonder and fascination along the way throughout the entire journey. So if you're cultivating an exercise habit, that might look like being amazed by what your body can do, right? So instead of being ashamed that you have, a little muffin top, perhaps you decide instead to be fascinated by how certain exercises have different impacts on different areas of your body, right? How you might decide that even though you can't do 30 sit-ups, you are getting better at holding a 30-second plank and your core is getting stronger. And you can decide that you're fascinated and curious about what other kind of exercises you can do to strengthen your core, right? Without just needing to be able to do sit-ups. And then detachment is about not needing the outcome to be anything in particular. So if cultivating an exercise habit is your goal, then maybe you don't need the scale to say anything in particular. Maybe you don't need any particular fitness goal other than showing up for the exercise and the movement itself. And if you happen to skip a day, you decide that that doesn't mean that you have to tell yourself that you're terrible at working out and that you're never going to break your habit and that you fell off the bandwagon, that you don't have to beat yourself up for missing a day of exercise, that you just decide that you'll start over and you will celebrate yourself for the next exercise workout that you do. And I want you to notice that in this example, some of these different beliefs, they will reinforce each other. So if you remain open to more than one type of success, you are more likely to have more things to celebrate along the way. And you are more likely to feel like whatever your skill or talent level is right now, it's sufficient for you to keep going. And it's enough for you to believe that you will ultimately reach the final version of success that you are reaching for. Right? So these things all work in concert. A second example that I can give you for what a beginner's mindset might look like in action in real life is that of learning an instrument. So I'm going to give you an example from my own life. So fun fact, I'm actually a really musical person. So, I am a singer. I sing all the time. I sing every Sunday at church. I'm on the praise team. And in addition to that, I also play the piano and the guitar. So I've been playing the piano since I was a little girl. I was mostly self-taught. I didn't take my first piano lesson until I think I was in like 7th grade or something like that. And I only took lessons for about a year or so. And then the rest was just me playing around, right? But then I also started playing the guitar later on in life, like in my early adulthood. I don't remember how old I was. But one day, my sister bought me a guitar for Christmas. And she's so hilarious. So she gives me this guitar and she's very excited to present this to me. And I was like, wow, it's a guitar. First of all, that's awesome, but you know I don't play guitar. And my sister, she very confidently said to me, that's fine. I'm sure you'll figure it out. And I thought it was hilarious because I had zero evidence that I could play the guitar because the guitar looks nothing like the piano, right? Like if y'all have seen a piano or a keyboard and you've seen a guitar, these two things don't look like at all. But my sister felt confident. She had a beginner's mindset for me, even if I didn't when it came to guitar. But I approached the guitar with the beginner's mindset. So I decided that my ability to play the piano would translate and help me in some way to be able to learn how to play the guitar. I just decided that, even though I didn't know whether or not that was true, I decided that it couldn't hurt and that it would only help. I decided that since I was already familiar with music and chords and I know a little bit of music theory, that would also help me. Then I tried to look up online like some sheet music for guitar to see if I could learn how to play some chords and songs, and very quickly learned that reading music for guitar is very different than reading music for piano. And so I was like, oh, this I don't know how to do. But I stayed open, and I decided that I didn't have to start by learning how to read the music. I just needed to learn some chords and start playing some notes and some sounds. And so I actually called up a buddy of mine who happened to play guitar, and I said, hey, can you show me a few things? And he was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And that's how I learned like the first couple of chords to use. And he said, hey, if you learn and kind of master these chords, you can mix them and match them to play a bunch of different songs that are really beginner friendly. And so I said, cool. And then I decided that he was right, and I practiced these chords. And then I would celebrate the fact that, hey, with these 4 chords, I can play these 12 songs. And I started looking for more songs that I could play using these same chords, right? And celebrating the fact that I was playing music and playing songs that sounded pretty decent for a beginner. Then I maintained my sense of curiosity by saying, hey, if I know now these 4 or 5 chords, maybe I can tweak them and adjust them and learn how to play even more chords, because if you know anything about music, you know that you can change a major chord into a minor chord by just adjusting one note. And so I maintained my curiosity about, if I can do this, what else is possible for me? And then, of course, I stayed detached, and I decided that this could just be a hobby. I didn't have to learn guitar to be able to play at a venue, and I wasn't trying to record any songs, and I didn't even have to be a songwriter or anything like that. I just wanted the experience of learning to play. And today I'm fairly decent, although I will admit that I do not practice nearly enough. But it's been fun, and approaching guitar with a beginner's mindset definitely allowed me to get further faster than if I had approached it with an expert's mindset instead. So I hope this is helpful, first of all. If you find yourself feeling like a failure because you don't reach the type of success that you feel like you want to instantaneously, right? Because so often as high achievers, we want instant success or we want nothing at all. But here's what I want you to remember. At the end of the day, there's not much in this life that you can't accomplish by simply acquiring and honing the appropriate skill set, right? So it doesn't matter if you weren't born naturally talented, and it doesn't matter if you are not instantly successful and instantly professional at the thing that you try for the first time. If you are simply willing to have the experience of not being an expert, you can eventually become an expert. Because whatever your goal is, there's always going to be a process of learning and growing and improving and, yeah, even failing before you get to where you want to be. And so, if you really want to achieve at a high level more often, you have to get better at experiencing that process without letting the feeling of failure derail you and discourage you from going after what you want. Because if you don't get anything else from this episode, write this down. If you believe that every point on the way to your goal is still failure, that anything less than crossing the finish line means that you have not made it, when you finally do reach your goal, when you finally do pass that finish line, you will still not feel like a success. And my friend, I want you to stop feeling like a failure because you're pretty amazing. All right, y'all. That's it for today. I hope that this is helpful to you. And more than anything, I hope that you will take what we've talked about today, these 5 core beliefs of a beginner's mindset, and start applying them in your life every day. And don't forget, you don't have to go through this process alone. Just because you're a beginner doesn't mean that you have to begin all by yourself. I am here to help. Y'all, I am a professional life coach. I does this. And I can do it for you and with you too. Just tap the link that's in the bio to book a sales call with me to sign up for my one-on-one coaching program. And I can help you cultivate a beginner's mindset that allows you to achieve more success faster and more often in your life. All right, I will be back in your ears next week. Hey, you don't want to miss next week because I will be starting a mini series on one of my favorite topics, and that is productivity. And I know you don't want to miss that. So be sure to hit that follow and subscribe button so that you get all of the episodes downloaded to your device of choice auto-magically without having to do anything. All right, I will see you next week. You will hear from me next week. Until then, peace. Hey, thanks for tuning into this week's episode. If you have a question or a favorite insight from today's conversation, I would love to hear from you. Send me a message on social media. I'm in all the places. My handle is @LifeEditProject, all one word. And of course, my accounts are linked up in the show notes to make it easy for you. So holla at your girl. I'll be back in your ears next week with a fresh episode. Make sure that you are subscribed to the Life Edit Project podcast wherever you like to listen so that you don't miss a thing. Until then, peace.